everyone. I would like to start by acknowledging that things are pretty tough with COVID, as we just spoke about, and so I hope you're all doing as well as you can with lockdown and the like. So as Lily said, my presentation today is about courageously shaping your future. I'd like to also give you a bit of background about myself and my career journey, which I would like to start by saying has been very windy, a windy journey to get to where I am. I'll talk a little bit about Essential Energy, what we do, and as Lily said, we are one of the biggest employers in the Mid-North Coast, and perhaps you know someone who works at Essential, or perhaps your parents work here. I'll also talk about the opportunities, our grad and apprenticeship programs that you can get involved in. And I'll share my top 5 career tips, but it's a pretty tough act to follow with Tim, so I apologise I don't have prizes, although feel free to heckle in the chat, and I'm always open to respond to your comments as I'm going through. So I'd like to start with the acknowledgement of country. Today we're all speaking and probably joining from Biripi, from the Biripi land, and in the spirit of reconciliation, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea and community. I pay my respects to ancestors and elders past, present, and extend that to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people today. So a little bit about Essential Energy. One of the things I love about Essential is we have values, and it's what we care about. And one of them is about being courageous and shaping the future. And that will really form up and frame what I'm going to speak to you about today. So just remember that theme as we go through this presentation. So me, that photo on the left is extremely embarrassing for me, but you might note the uniform, and I'm not sure which schools or universities you're from today, but I'm actually born and bred Port Macquarie. So I was born in Port Macquarie Base Hospital. I attended St Joseph's Primary, St Joey's Regional, and I'm that old that it was where Kmart is now. So if you're local and know where Kmart is, that's where I went to school. And when I was about 15, my parents sold their business, and I ended up finishing my education elsewhere. And I feel like I've taken the Essential Energy. And my role at Essential Energy is I'm the Chief Information Officer, and you're at a careers fair for ICT jobs. So just to give you an outline of what a Chief Information Officer does, I'm lucky enough to work with the team that runs the IT, the telco, the data networks, the operational technology, and the cybersecurity for Essential Energy. I wasn't always in IT, and in fact, I found my calling quite late to join. And I can hear the lawnmower man has just started up, so please, apologies if you can't hear me, just sing out if you can't. So how did I get here? Well, from regional and Joey's, I actually graduated eventually after many years of not knowing what I wanted to do with my future and career. I was lucky enough to get a UAI, which meant I was able to go to university. And I'm that old that I had a UAI, not an ATAR, which you'll all probably get. And my UAI meant that I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my career. So in the absence of having a definite direction, I subscribed and was lucky enough to get into a double degree in commerce law at ANU. Now, most people will go, that's fantastic. You could be a lawyer, you could be an accountant. There's so many things you could do with that. But I quickly realised that whilst this was the best 5 years of my life, my passion was doing anything other than commerce and law. And I spent a lot of time socialising. I spent a lot of time playing sport. I spent a lot of time doing anything other than uni. And I realised I'd hit rock bottom when I was in my 4th year of a double degree in commerce law, and I was subscribing, I was enrolling in torts, a first year law subject, for the 4th time. And at that point, I realised that it's probably time to call it, and I officially became a uni dropout at that point. So dropping out of ANU might seem like a bit of a low light, but this was actually a great opportunity for me to do some soul searching. And through that soul searching, I realised that what I actually wanted to do was to become a scuba diving instructor. So this photo here, I wish I'd taken it. It's of a shark, and just in the chat, does anyone know what type of shark that is? Just waiting for any responses. Anyone know? No one knows what type of shark that is? Okay, that's actually a greyness shark, and that photo was taken off Sydney, off Maroubra. And at the time, I thought this is the best thing I've ever seen and the best thing I've ever done, and this is what I want to do with my life. And in fact, I wish I'd taken that photo, but this was 2010, and the photo I took is actually this photo here, and you can tell the difference in the quality. But I was close enough to take that photo that that meant it was a pretty amazing experience. So I was teaching scuba diving. I was living in Coogee in Sydney, and I thought this is what I want to do forever. But shortly after that, I realised at the end of just one winter in Sydney Harbour that I was actually a massive wuss. And getting into a wetsuit every day and getting into Sydney Harbour where the water temp was sometimes 9 degrees after a storm made me realise that it's probably time I went and got an office job, something that was a bit less open to the weather, and something that I could do for a longer time than scuba diving, because I was really battling with the cold. I was battling with the early morning starts, 5 a.m, and I found actually at times it was quite stressful because you're underwater. I was new to the job, I was learning, and that inspired me actually to think about, okay, I really love scuba diving, I'm really enjoying this. What else am I passionate about? And I realised I wasn't passionate about commerce law, and so every day of uni felt like a battle. But the other thing I realised I was very passionate about was IT. And like many of you on the call, I had a deep love of technology, I'd say, and I was always very interested in how does technology work and what else could I do with it. So I sucked it up and I decided it was time for me to get a real job. And so with that, I went to night school because I had no IT qualifications. So I did some Windows certifications at night, and I got my first ever job. It certainly wasn't illustrious, but it was unpacking boxes out at the airport, unpacking computers actually, and installing 40 computers for a company. And that was the catalyst for my career. From there, I've moved through numerous IT jobs in numerous organisations in Australia, in the East Coast, in New South Wales, and even overseas. And each time I've landed those jobs, it's been a real mix of dedication, hard work, and also luck. And some of the things Tim mentioned before about putting yourself out there, being creative, saying yes, I just think are so true, because of all the career opportunities I've had, the ones that you didn't plan are sometimes the ones that are the most exciting. So in 2020, after this cold winter, I also realised that I was going to need to learn some new skills if I was going to continue my career. And at that point, I enrolled in a Masters in IT through correspondence through CSU actually. And I was living south of Newcastle at the time, commuting to Sydney for work and studying at night. And I was actually extremely proud on the day that I finished that degree, because it showed me that, one, I had the aptitude to actually finish it and do it. And I was very excited to work in IT. So that's a little bit about my story. It's taken me around the world. It's taken me a long time to realise what I'm passionate about. And I really implore you to think about, you know, your career not as a straight line and a destination, but as a journey. And to that end, my journey has landed me back in Port Macquarie at Essential Energy. And I can see one of the questions is, to become a Chief Information Officer, do you have to have a good understanding of coding and software development? Well, the secret's out, but I'm the least technical person, I think, in our IT team, and I cannot code. I'm terrible at it, actually, and that's not one of my skills. And I'm not a software developer either. My career progression has been through, I've done some project roles. I did a lot of, I've done service desk. I did customer experience roles. I've done service delivery roles, application support roles, but never coding. So there's many paths to get to where you want to go, and that doesn't need to be a linear line, and you don't need to be the most technical person. So I'll get to that in a minute with my top tips on your career. So a little bit about Essential Energy, where I'm very proud to have landed and work. Essential Energy, as I said, we build, operate and maintain the electricity network to empower communities. Our footprint is regional and rural New South Wales, and we're one of the largest electricity network providers in Australia. We're the people you call if you lose your power overnight, if there's a storm or a flood, and we look after the poles and wires. But we also do so much more than that, and I'll play a video in a second that outlines all the opportunities at Essential Energy. From a STEM perspective though, there are so many roles that help make Essential Energy tick that are related to STEM, and they might be electrical engineering, designing, running our system control, which is like a huge control centre like you see on the movies that controls the electricity grid. It might be a technical system specialist, communication specialist. We've got a big capability uplift at the moment around cyber security because that is just so critical. Could be mobile app development, process specialists. We've even got a team of drone pilots. So there's no end of opportunities at Essential. So how big is Essential Energy? Well, we've got 1.3, this slide's a bit old, 1.4 million poles, power poles that we look after around New South Wales. Our fleet and our vehicles travel 40 million kilometres in a year. We have about 740,000 square kilometres of network that we look after. There's around 3,000 employees who help us do that, and we have 100 depots across New South Wales. A little known fact, we also run Essential Water, which if anyone's from Broken Hill or has family in Broken Hill, that's a water and sewage and waste business out of Broken Hill. I'm just going to play a little video about what is it we do, and as you watch the video, have a think about how IT and STEM and engineering is fueling all these different things that happen.
Hi Sarah, this is Lily. I just want to let you know that your sound isn't working currently.
Okay, thanks Lily.
Should we share it?
The sound's not coming.
Yeah, if you want the sound to play, you might need to just reshare. So just unshare and share again.
The sound's not coming through, but I'll just stabilise that. This is some of our problems. That's this is a Windows Coast floods in Port Macquarie earlier this year. That's a system control. This is our helicopters, which we use fleet to visually inspect our network. This is our iPad mobile app. Our drones. This is our group to high voltage network. And I'm sorry the sound didn't come through there, everyone, but hopefully you got a sense of what we do at Essential Energy, and it's a lot. And if I link that through to technology and the energy industry, some of the emerging things that we're thinking about and some of the things that are already here that we're solving for include just the everyday technology that's in our houses and how does that play out in the energy industry. So, for example, EVs, and you might have seen around Port Macquarie the proliferation of Tesla cars. I think there's a lot more than there ever was. Rooftop solar, smart devices, so IoT or internet connected devices within your home where your fridge can tell you what it's time to order. Smart meters, so this is the way your electricity is connected to the network and the grid, and also how we read your meter to provide you with a bill. We've talked about smart appliances, telecommunications and data services, and we run one of the largest networks at Essential Energy around the state of fibre, and we also have around 10 data centres that we look after, virtual power plants, demand management and distribution system operator readiness, and we also run a huge cloud network. So that's a little bit about Essential Energy. So if you're sitting there thinking, well, this all sounds good, but how do I get involved? Well, lucky for you, we run a graduate program and we also run an apprenticeship program. So if studying local or staying local or working local is something that is of interest to you, there's a number of opportunities around Port Macquarie, not only to study local with campuses like CSU hosting, running for this year an ICT degree, which is just fantastic and a great talent pathway. But we also take graduates from all over the country at Essential Energy. We host a 3-year graduate program of which you rotate throughout the business. You gain hands-on experience whilst also working. And we also partner with other institutions such as Engineering Australia. And we have a membership at work for the Australian Computer Society, ACS, so that our graduates also have that linkage back to other organisations as well. We took on 3 graduates this year in the ICT space in Port Macquarie, 1 in cybersecurity, 1 in software development or mobile apps, and 1 generalist. And last year was the first year we actually ran a graduate program, and I'm very pleased to say our grad's in his 2nd year, our ICT grad, and doing a fantastic job. We also actively promote diversity and inclusion, so encourage everyone to think about that and join. And finally, all of our grads are buddied up and they have a networking opportunity. So with that, I'd like to close out with my 5 top tips for your career. And if someone had told me these at the time, I certainly didn't follow them. So I share this with you. Be courageous in your career and shape your own future, but do it your way. So, you know, if uni's for you, fantastic. If uni's not for you, there's so many opportunities to look at to start your education and keep going. My own career, I did night school, I did uni via correspondence, and then I did an MBA. So I feel like I've got a good spread of career education. It takes a village. So think about who you surround yourself with. Get a mentor, ask for advice, join the Australian Computer Society, lean on your friends, ask your parents, listen to old people like me, and be a champion for other people's career. I've been really lucky that my parents are great advocates of education and great supporters, but equally I've had a number of mentors who have been male champions for females in the workplace, and they've really helped me through my career. Be a tryhard, and I know that's not cool to say when you're at school, but I mean it. Try hard at everything you do. You may not always be the smartest person in the room, but if you try hard, you'll know you've given it your best shot, and that's all you can hope for. Have fun, do something you're passionate about. This sounds very cheesy, but as soon as I started doing jobs that I really liked, work became a pleasure. It wasn't a job anymore. And I found that with my scuba diving, and I've certainly found that with my ICT career post. Say yes more. So opportunity knocks in funny places. When I arrived in London, it was the start of the GFC, and I couldn't get a job in ICT anywhere. So I took a job as an executive assistant. I didn't know what that was at the time. I thought it was typing, and I'm a pretty fast typer, so I said, yes, of course I'll do it. It was during this job that the chief financial officer of the bank I was working at asked me to make him a cup of tea one day, and I did, of course. And he went on to tell me that was the worst cup of tea he's ever had in his life. And I laughed and I said, well, I'm sorry about that. That's because I'm not really very good at catering, but I was previously an IT manager. And we had a good conversation about that. And the next day I landed my IT job at that bank. So say yes, do things, be open to opportunities. And finally, be you, be yourself, be authentic. Again, that sounds a bit obvious and cheesy, but you're the best at being you, and don't try and be something you're not, and be open and transparent about where you are, and that will always see you through. So good luck for your careers. I'm very excited that you've taken this opportunity to think about your career in ICT, and I encourage you to go forth and do great things. So thank you for your time, and probably back to you, Lily, for any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. So with your current role now, what are some common tasks that you do as a Chief Information Officer?
Good question. I feel like most of my day is attending meetings, and that sounds boring, but it's great because I get to talk to people all day long. I'm also accountable for our budget, for our planning, for our digital strategy, and I sit on the executive of our company, so really the leadership of our company. And that's probably one of the most exciting parts of my role, that I really get to connect with our field and our purpose and how we empower our communities.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess along the same lines, to become a Chief Information Officer, do you have to be really good at understanding coding and software development?
Yeah, I would say definitely not. To become a Chief Information Officer, you need to have some basic skills, basic foundational skills in a few disciplines in technology. I sort of round them out by saying you need experience in running apps, you need experience in running infrastructure, which is probably a bit old school now, so maybe cloud, so good knowledge of cloud, and you need to be able to deliver projects or have an understanding of projects, because a lot of what we do is big change. And so if you understand how you can deliver big change through a project, that's really helpful. The other skill I'd say for a Chief Information Officer that's really important is communication. So how you communicate technical things to lay people, and I consider myself a layman in technology, so being able to take challenging concepts and make them simple, and that's probably a really good skill as well for your interviews. Think about how would you explain it to your mum or dad or to your grandma. And cybersecurity. So I encourage everyone who's thinking about a career in ICT or STEM or engineering or any career to just do some research on cybersecurity.
Yeah, amazing. And touching on those projects that you mentioned before, so what type of projects have you worked on at Essential Energy?
Essential runs a big technology program portfolio, and it's actually amazing to be part of it. So we're doing things at the moment, right, like redefining our core. So we're replacing our enterprise resource planning system. We're going to replace the system that runs the assets. So I just told you about the 1.4 million poles. So we have a system that runs that. We're going to replace that. We also, as you saw, we do a lot of cool technology stuff like drones, mobility. How do we send things to iPads, Apple Watches in the field? How do we promote safety in the field through technology? So that might be sending pop-ups or the right messages at the right time. And we're also replacing and upgrading and doing some work on the system operating environments that run the electricity network. So lots of cool projects.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I guess going back to your time as a scuba diver, have you ever had any life-threatening experience while scuba diving?
Great question. Look, I think the first time I saw a shark, I thought it was a life-threatening experience, which it really wasn't. But one of the things that my scuba diving career taught me that was really important is that your personal accountability for your own safety. So when I was a dive master, which is before you become a scuba diver, I spent a lot of time understanding how do I make sure that the 8 people I was diving with are all safe and what's my job in that. So thankfully, I haven't had a life-threatening scuba diving experience, but I have been very scared at a number of times with either when I couldn't find the boat or, you know, when I see something exciting for the first time and you can feel your breath sort of coming up through your ears and you wonder how quickly you're going to run out of air because you're so excited. So good question though.
I guess similar to that, but with your current career, what was your most courageous action and how has it impacted your career?
That's a good question. Probably one of the most courageous things I did was say yes to running a really big project. I at the time was quite junior, and my boss's boss, who was also a great mentor, said to me that he'd like me to run this project that I'd been complaining about. It was a failed project. And I said, "You're kidding, that sounds like a terrible idea and a career limiting move." And he said, "Well, you know, you're experiencing the project, all the things that are wrong. Why don't you get involved and fix the things that are wrong and, you know, emphasize the things that are right?" And it took some convincing, but I ended up doing that project. It was 18 months of my life, and the project was around $35 million. And at the time I didn't even have budgetary approval. So it was a really big change for me. And we ended up delivering that project, which was excellent, but it was probably the hardest thing I'd done in my career. And from there, I keep looking back and going, well, if I could get through that, we can get through this. So yeah, probably doing a big, scary project was my aim.
Yeah, that's great. And so referencing to the video, what do you use the drones for?
Good question. And I'm sorry the sound didn't come through on that video. That was probably my error. We use the drones to fly them on top of poles, or when someone's inspecting an asset and you can't quite get the right angle. We have a number of drone pilots. I think we've got about 150 drones in the field, and we fly them up to be able to get a better angle of the equipment and to inspect things more safely. We've also just purchased some drones, high-spec drones that are able to do a LiDAR imagery of the environment. So then that will also help us be able to do a digital twin, which we didn't talk about digital twins today, but that's also something pretty cool we're doing at work. So we can create a digital twin of the network, and then we can manipulate that offline, check the design, do new designs, and then implement in the field. So yeah, the drones are going really well. There's been a number of safety incidents or potential safety incidents we've been able to avoid. And they're part of our toolkit now, that our teams carry a drone with them so they don't have to climb a pole.
Wow, that's really useful. And so as a final question for you today, so seeing as you spent a lot of time at uni, if you had that time again, would you have gone straight from school to uni?
Great question. I actually think if I had my time again, because I wasn't confident on what I wanted to do, I should have taken a gap year. I should have gone and worked somewhere and thought about, okay, what is it I want to do? Am I really interested in commerce law? Do I want to do IT, etc.? And that probably would have worked out better for me. And I probably wasn't mature enough to make those decisions at the time. So I would have, I think in hindsight, doing some work first. But would I change anything? Definitely not, because this windy path has been a lot of fun on the way and got me to where I am.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your presentation.